because he does have some words of inspiration for us, and I think now's the appropriate time for him to give those. That's what you came here for, to come here and listen to me about it. Colonel Jacobs, please.
I was perfectly happy to sit down and Stacy, you can do anything you want. I think people can hear me anyway. I can do that. Can you hear me now? Can you see me? I'm not a whole lot taller than this podium. I had to get a waiver to get a commission. You have to be 5'6" to get a commission in the Army. And I was not 5'6". I was barely 5'4", and I'm not 5'4" anymore either. I'm shrinking, I'm getting smaller and smaller. Eventually, I'll disappear altogether. Someone will say, "Where's Jacobs? He was just here a moment ago." It sort of reminds me of I got to tell you this story about my height. I like being short, by the way, and those of you who spend time with people artfully trying to kill you in combat know that everybody tries to get to be about this big. There's no such thing as too small in combat. So if I were 2 inches taller, I'd be dead, so I really like and even now that I'm retired, I can wear kids' clothes and so on. I spent some time on NBC, and about 20 years or so ago, Lester Holt, who's now the anchor in NBC Nightly News, was at MSNBC, and he and I were on like half the day, because the war was getting started over in Iraq, and there was this big sand table on the ground, on the floor, and I'd point to it incorrectly most times, but nobody knew the difference, where everybody was and where everybody was, and all the rest of it. The guy who was running MSNBC's Dayside at the time had just arrived, and he was a radio guy, so he didn't know a whole lot about television. We did, you do an 8-minute segment and a block, and then you'd go to a commercial, and then you'd come back and do another 8 minutes, and so on. So we went to a break, and the boss comes out and says, "This is not working out." So what do you mean it's not working? He says, "We're having a hard time getting you and Lester in the same shot. See, every time we zoom in on you, we get your head in Lester's armpit." That's right. Lester's 6'2" or 3. He's straight to 2. He used to be 6'3". And then when we pull back so that we can get all of Lester, we can't see you at all. And if you're talking, it's like Lester's a ventriloquist. There's this disembodied voice that's you, but nobody can see you. So you're going to have to stand on a box. Stand on a box? Yeah, stand on a box. So like 12 stagehands come out. It's a union shot. 12 stagehands come out. One of them puts the box down, and the other 11 look while he puts the box down. I get on the box. We come back from the break. Lester says, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, the Marines are crossing on Nasiriyah, and here comes the 3rd Infantry Division," and so on. This goes on for about 8 minutes, and then we go to another break, except that the boss didn't bother to tell the executive producer in the control room that I'm standing on the box. Because going into the commercial, they have a bump shot, and they pull back to reveal my standing on the box. And my phone is ringing off the hook with people who used to be friends of mine, leaving messages like, "Holy cow, you're standing on the box." And the worst was from a guy named Tommy O'Grady, one of only 200 people drafted into the Marine Corps during the war in Vietnam, calling from a saloon somewhere in Pompano Beach, Florida. And he left a message saying, "Do you know you're standing on the box?" Nothing worse than people thinking you have no idea. That's my too short story. But being behind this and having the microphone go up and down reminded me. I grew up in New York, and my father had served in the Army in New Guinea and the Philippines during the Second World War. He had been studying electrical engineering at the University of Minnesota and was dragooned into the Army with about 8 weeks to go before graduation. Hated getting dragged out of college. Hated the Army, hated getting shot at. Nobody likes getting shot. Got out of the Army the instant that he could when the war was over. And yet when he got to be my age, all he'd talk about was how proud he was at having saved the world. And he and his generation had done exactly that. Since that time, we've had to rely on several other generations of young people who have defended our freedom, our interests abroad and at home, and who have ensured that the service and sacrifice of the people who came before them had not been wasted. Now it's our obligation to make sure that the next generation does the same. That we remember what was done in the name of the United States, in the name of our freedom, so that succeeding generations can do what they need to do in order to keep our country safe, keep our people free. It takes a lot of work. And those of you, I'm preaching to the converted because everybody here has either served or is heavily involved with people who serve. It's not easy to do that. My first assignment was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I went airborne because it paid you $110 a month. And a new lieutenant made $222.10 a month. I did something really ignorant. I got married when I was 18 years old, so by the time I was commissioned, I had 2 kids. And went airborne because it was a 50% increase in salary. And that wasn't even a lot of money back in those days. Marriage is not recommended. I told my kids not to get married. But if they are going to get married, they should keep their eye peeled for the ideal spouse. The ideal spouse has 2 and only 2 salient characteristics. Incredibly rich and incurably ill. I think it didn't work for me, but my kids didn't listen to me. They're gloriously happy. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I realized one thing right away that we all have to remember. No, how can it be told? Don't pull out, because then I have to move on. That's quite okay. I realized right away, and you did too, the instant you put on the uniform, that young people get authority and responsibility at a very early age. I spent a lot of time talking to people who are CEOs, people who own businesses, and they all say the same thing. We want to hire veterans. And I ask them, why do you want to hire veterans? And most of them, if they're not enlightened, say, well, they've served and therefore we owe it to them, as if it's charity. And I tell them, you have no idea what you're talking about. These are the best people you can find anywhere. Indeed, most of them have had authority and responsibility at 19, more than you've got right now. And I think we're turning the tide on that. We're convincing a lot of people that hiring veterans is vitally important for their own good, not for the veterans' good. The veterans know what they're doing. They've had lots of authority and responsibility. About the medal. When I was decorated, there were about 375 living recipients. Today, there are 65 of us. We're really a waning asset. The first dinner I attended, the guy who sat next to me was Eddie Rickenbacker, at the age of the First World War. And we were talking last night about this. One of the guys there at the dinner was a fellow named Bill Seach, who conducted a bayonet charge on the Citadel at Beijing in 1900 during the Boxer Rebellion. He was still alive. And now there are very few of us left, which is why we feel very, very strongly about supporting the kinds of things you're all doing. And we scatter around the country, those of us who can still wander around and get on a plane and so on, to do exactly what I'm doing, what you're all doing now. It's interesting about the medal because it is arbitrary in many respects. And those of us who've been decorated realize that there are lots of people who should be wearing the medal but are not. Somebody once asked Bob Kerrey, how do you wind up getting the Medal of Honor? Bob Kerrey was governor of Nebraska and was a senator from Nebraska, not to be confused with John Kerry, who was different altogether. I asked Kerry one time, he's from Nebraska, I said, how did you wind up in the Navy? He said, well, I had a low draft number. I didn't want to go in the Army, go to Vietnam, got my leg blown off. So instead I joined the Navy, went to Vietnam, got my leg blown off. It's real Navy SEAL and received his Medal of Honor as a Navy SEAL. Somebody once asked him in an interview, what does it take to get the Medal of Honor? And he said, well, you got to do something. People have to see it. They have to be able to write, and they can't beat you. Those are the 4 requirements. You think about it. All the people who served and served valiantly and nobody saw it. Or people saw it and they themselves were killed. There was nobody left to witness it. Or what often happened, as we know in the case of a lot of people recently who've been decorated retrospectively, the paperwork was accidentally or on purpose lost, destroyed. Ted Rubin was recommended for the Medal of Honor 4 separate times for 4 separate actions. And his first sergeant said, no bleeping Jew will ever get any award in my company. And 50 years later, a couple of the guys whose lives he had saved got together and reinstituted the paperwork, started all over again. Ted's ceremony was the only one other than my own that I attended. 55 years after he earned the award. So think about all the people who performed valiantly and were never recognized. That's why recipients say that this medal is not ours. We just hold it in trust. And a recipient now gone named Nikki Bacon said, I wear this medal not for me, but for all those who came. When we think about the young people who are in service today, we have to make sure that we don't forget how hard they're working to protect all of us. During the Second World War, there were 19 million people in uniform. Today, we have outsourced the defense of the Republic to a very small number of young men and women who are willing to do it. And we should never, ever forget that we're able to enjoy freedom. Our families are able to enjoy freedom because of those young kids who are out there right now. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing now. But more than that, I want to thank you for everything you're going to do. God bless.
You're going to save the good speaking, the good microphone for anybody. I'm glad you're waiting for him. Yeah, this seems to be working better. One of the great joys that I've had over the years is working with Army recruiting. I've been with the Army Advisory Board. Initially it was called the Center of Influence Program, and I like that COI, it sounds really official. I've been with them about 15 years. And it is gratifying to see all these young men and women making a commitment to serve. Today, we have a very, very special moment for you. We have a young man who is going to be representing all the recruits in the United States. We will do something that maybe has never been done before. We're going to have a Medal of Honor recipient, Jack Jacobs, administer the oath of enlistment to our newest Army recruit. Josue, did he run out on us? Don't you change him around?
I used to know this by heart, but I haven't enlisted anybody your right hand
All rise.
and repeat after me. All right. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Congratulations.
I can't speak for anyone, but I can tell you that I was inspired today. And I look forward to doing more of these events. Please join our guest of honor downstairs in the lobby. We'll be happy to meet you and sign your programs if you'd like. And if you're feeling particularly inspired yourself, there are a limited number, well actually he is giving away 100 of them. There were a limited number of posters. David Schwartz has agreed to pass out those to those attending here, particularly the veterans and active military. So once again, thank you for coming. God be with you and make every day some kind of holiday. The band is going to play.
Scott.
From the crowd.
Oh, sorry, man.
We didn't get it. Everybody stepped in front of me.
All right, you got it.
Okay.
Is that light lighting you?